I want to say a few things today. First of all, thanks to Unions 21 and to Mel for writing this pamphlet. We know that youth unemployment is a huge challenge at the moment, but there's nothing inevitable about youth unemployment being more than 1 million. And if government took concerted action, that number could come down and we could have many more young people back at work, contributing not only towards their own economic futures, but also to the economic recovery of the country. And I'll say that a bit more about that at the end. The numbers, though, that we've got in terms of youth unemployment at the moment are truly staggering. Youth unemployment is higher now than it was at the peak of the financial crisis in 2008, 2009, with more than 1 million young people out of work. But long-term youth unemployment, just in the last year, has quadrupled. And we know that the scarring effects, which Mel talks about in her paper, of long-term youth unemployment are very damaging, again, not just for the young people, but for the economy as a whole, because the longer young people are out of work, the harder it is to reintegrate into the workforce. And I'll come on to some statistics on that in a bit. But one of the things as well that's been spoken about in this pamphlet is not just unemployment amongst young people, but also underemployment. And this is a big problem in the labour market as a whole at the moment. One of the things that the government have trumpeted a lot is that unemployment as a whole has not risen by as much as some people had anticipated, particularly in an environment where we are back in recession. But that masks a wider problem of underemployment. Many people who are working part-time want to be working in full-time jobs but can't find them. Many people on 16-hour contracts, many people also on 0-hour contracts, not out of choice, not because they want that flexibility, but because those are the only jobs that are being offered to them. And of course the problem is bigger for young people who have less experience in the labour market, and it's a greater problem as well for people with lower skills. And there's an MP representing Leeds West, which has got one of the lowest going to university rates in the country and one of the highest levels of needs. I know firsthand from representing that community that it is people with lower skills, young people, who are hit hardest by the recession and the lack of government response to recession. Mel's spoken a little bit about some of the evidence in her paper, but there's also evidence from the Akivo work on youth unemployment that talks about not just the short-term costs of youth unemployment, but the long-term costs. And being unemployed when you're aged between 18 and 24 results in a 15% pay premium later in life. So of the 407,000 young women who are out of work at the moment, they can expect a pay penalty of £1,700 per year by the time they are aged around 40. For the 607,000 young men who are out of work today, they can expect a pay penalty when they're aged 40 of around £3,300. And of course that pay penalty increases the longer someone is unemployed. So those increases in long-term youth unemployment are particularly worrying. The 300,000 young people who have been out of work for more than a year, perhaps people who you should worry most about, between the ages of 28 and 33, in that 5-year period, those 300,000 people who have been out of work for more than a year when they are younger are likely to spend 40% of that period out of work or economically inactive as well. So again, not just problems today for that group of young people who are out of work or long-term unemployed, but this is something that's going to continue and take with them for the rest of their lives, which is why it's so important that action is taken now. So what action have we seen from this government? Well, they abolished the Future Jobs Fund, got rid of the educational maintenance allowance and called university tuition fees. So obviously all those things are going to really help that 1 million young people who are so desperately looking for work. And it is that combination of policies that are really adding to the woes and worries of this cohort of people. But I also want to point to some of the things that Michael Gove is doing in terms of education reform, because in some ways the long-term consequences of those could even dwarf the impact of what they're doing in the short run. So the shift towards purely academic education up to the age of 16 at the cost of concentration on vocational education is likely, I believe, to result in more young people dropping out of school and not being engaged in education. education and less likely to continue on to college or university. That focus in the English baccalaureate and the academic subjects at all costs, and the cost particularly of vocational education, is likely to result in more people leaving school without the skills and qualifications they need to be successful in the labour market. There's a number of things, though, that governments could be doing. Labour have advocated a repeat of the bank bonus tax of 50% and using that money to create 100,000 jobs for young people, but also the construction of 25,000 new affordable homes. I think that speaks to the priorities of this Conservative-led government compared to a future Labour government. This government's priorities as a tax cut for bankers and a tax cut for millionaires, whereas a real priority at the moment should be getting young people back to work. But Mel and Rae have also rightly spoken about the quality of work and training in the workplace. And one of the reasons why a lot of young people are out of work is because they don't always have the skills that businesses need, and that they are competing with workers who have been in the labour market for a longer period of time. So ensuring that there's good quality jobs as well as just a quantity of jobs, although it would be nice to have either right now, is really important if we're going to keep those young people in the labour market and ensure that they've got the skills to progress in the labour market. If you look, and people have mentioned some of the jobs that young people do, if you look at the retail sector in Germany, 80% of people who work in retail have qualifications of 2 to 3 years in retail, which enable them to then move up and progress through their careers. In the UK, only 30% of people who work in retail have those skills. If you take social care, in Germany, people who work in social care have the qualifications of a general nurse. In the UK, only a third of people who work in social care have a level 2 qualification. So I think that speaks to the need to improve both the quality and quantity of jobs if everybody is to have a career and not just a job. And Mel mentioned redistribution. If we are going to reduce those inequalities in wages, things like the living wage will help, and perhaps we'll talk about that in the question and answer, but upskilling the workforce and the role of that unions play in that, I think, are critically important if we are going to have a fairer redistribution of income and wealth under a future Labour government.